Is it almost time? It's time. If you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much and welcome. Our first item for order is the consent agenda items, which is approving the meeting minutes for July 2nd, our regular meeting, special meeting July 10th. Do I hear a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, so moved. Thank you. Action items A, B, and C, 3A, B, and C, general fund vouchers and payroll vouchers and water fund vouchers. Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion to approve action items A, B, and C.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So moved. Thank you. Commissioner reports. Who wants to go first?
I just had the two port meetings last month and a EDC meeting. There's nothing of extreme importance to report on any of that.
Okay, how about you, Ted?
I attended the conference in Suncadia and also during Allyn days, along with Larry spoke to the sheriff about criminalizing our marina rules.
Oh, super. Good. I can hardly wait to hear about that one. Did the port meeting, Oyster House meeting, July 10th, and the Port of Allyn meeting. Did Allyn days as well. Man, the Oyster booth sold a case of wine. All the proceeds go to North Bay Historical Society. Yay. Also went to the July 22nd, 24th WPPA meeting. Just so you know, one of the classes I really enjoyed was about understanding our tribes. And I also learned that Commissioner Jackson has gone to, did a lot of extensive training because of his fish and wildlife training for tribal laws and sovereignty. So thanks for bringing that to the table. The branding class was really helpful. A little more enlightening. I think we've been doing a good job with our logos and marketing, but you know, we still need to continue to update and progress. It was a good seminar. The 25th, we went to visit the Mason County permit person for the Sergeant Oyster House with Mike Ross, Walter Galitsky, Larry, and I attended. So Mike Ross has offered to be the project manager until the end of the year. He's going to be doing drawings and kind of give us a clear plan to proceed. And he's also contacted Dr. Kate Samsell, and she has verbally agreed to be our Sergeant Oyster House historian. And she has expertise in historical museums. And which, for our meeting, we're going to have on tomorrow, Tuesday, we're going to be having her online, I hope, or at least on the phone, which would be great. August 1st, the genealogy group wanted to know more about the Sergeant Oyster House, and speaking of which, Bonnie Knight gave a great presentation to them. I just handed out information. And then I met with Mike Ross and Bill Ray and Larry about moving forward on the process of permitting and what Mike Ross needs for the Oyster House to continue. So a little wordy, but there you go. Okay, Travis, you're next.
All right. Travis Merrill, Port Security. 4th of July festivities went on here at the beginning of the month. I think I made a mention of it at the last meeting. No incidents to report there. It was fairly kosher, I guess. I guess we've got some people that have got some confusion on where they're supposed to be parking their boat when it comes to the North Shore. We had somebody kind of off and on parking for about a week on the opposite side of the launch ramp. I received a complaint about that from one of the neighbors. Left them a note that, you know, you need to not be parking here, you need to pay for moorage, charge them for a couple days of moorage. They never paid it, of course. I guess, we were trying to get things, the code's criminalized, and that would probably help with some weight for some of these people wouldn't be skirting the rules, so to speak. Then we had a complaint about some people jumping off the dock, being that it's summertime, it's kind of hard to stop. But they were jumping off the lower dock, seems pretty safe and sane. They're jumping off the upper dock, maybe we need to address something that we can do there.
Yeah.
That might be a liability on our end. But other than that, it's been fairly good for how busy it is.
Yeah.
Great,
Yeah.
good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Travis. Appreciate that. Bonnie,
Sorry I missed your opening comments.
it's all right. Larry, you're next.
All right. Water system issues. Northwest Water Service has resubmitted our updated water system plan to the state after responding to the letters from the Department of Ecology and Department of Health and addressing what they wanted to see modified in the plan. I spoke with Doug Peel from Northwest Water Systems recently, and he said he spoke to the person he's been dealing with at the state. Excuse me. And they didn't have any additional comments or requirements at that time, but they were still waiting on Mason County to do their review, sign off on the plan so it could be finalized. Commissioner Netherland looked into this for us, and we got what we needed from the county, which I submitted to Doug. Doug then told me he had changed the plan so it would be good for 10 years instead of 6. We got the okay for that in writing from the county, and Doug has submitted everything. So it's my understanding that all we are waiting for now is final approval from the state. We also received our annual operating permit renewal from the state, and we're given a green rating, which is our highest. Creating and signing our own warrants. I had a meeting with the Mason County Treasurer last week, and she told me it's not a problem with them for us to write our own checks as long as we adhere to certain procedures they require. For starters, we need a resolution for the change and a policy and procedure written. I'll have these for you by the next meeting. Getting the language for these has been problematic at best. I've asked the treasurer, the state auditor, and MRSC for boilerplate samples, but no one seemed to have any actual language we can use, so I guess I'll just have to write it myself. We need to set up a separate bank account to handle this, get checks printed and some other things, and I've reached out to Kitsap Bank to try and get a handle on these costs. Spoke with our representative from the bank today, and she's supposed to try to get back to me tomorrow. At the treasurer's request, the change should take place on January 1st, 2019. That will also work well with bias and give us time to get all the inevitable kinks worked out of the process. Also, financial services at the county has been given their part-time employee back and will begin running warrants weekly beginning in October. They're also hopeful to be able to provide some level of ACH by the first of the year, which would make this process for us doing it ourselves even smoother. However, they also told me not to hold my breath on that, but they may still be able to make it happen. It all depends on funding. Department of Retirement Service audit findings. The Department of Retirement Services recently audited us. I'm proud to say they had no findings and didn't issue a management letter of any kind. Their letter stating the results and a copy of the report are in your meeting packet. I forwarded those to you earlier today. They weren't part of the initial packet because we just had the exit interview this morning.
Okay, great.
Gravel pit comments. As you know, there was an application filed with Mason County for expansion of a gravel pit operation on property directly adjoining our upland piece across North Shore Road from the marina. Because the public notice was posted on our property without our knowledge or permission, many local residents thought this was a port project. I posted 2 things on Facebook stating it wasn't and shared them in all the Mason County Facebook groups. Also posted a comment on the Kitsap Sun website about the story they ran, and personally responded to over 35 individual emails, as well as dealing with people coming into the office, as well as talking to me about this at Allyn Days. Additionally, a fair number of folks thought this was Commissioner Scott's personal project because the applicant's name was also Scott. So I had to correct that perception as well. The bottom line is because of all the misunderstanding about this, I spent the best part of a week doing little more than responding to citizen inquiries. As you know, the applicant has rescinded the application because of the pressure from local citizens. However, I did receive an email from Mr. Van Buskirk with letters from a number of state agencies attached. He wants that document entered into our official meeting record. The attachment is part of your meeting documents and is on the agenda for action. Security upgrades. IntelliSystems installed the camera system upstairs last week and it's up and running now. Presentation upgrades. As you can see, after Commissioner Cooper asked me to look into setting up a permanent presentation system in this room, we now have a large flat screen monitor TV with Bluetooth capabilities. Total cost of the system was slightly under $1,000, which is significantly less than a high quality projection system would have been. 2019 budget process. I intend to begin working on the 2019 budget this month and have it ready for public hearing and adoption at the October meeting. We'll need a special meeting and a second public hearing sometime in September for this as well. My timeline is for us to have a preliminary draft at the September regular meeting along with a public hearing. A second draft, based upon your input and any citizen input at that first public hearing, will be at the special meeting along with the second public hearing. And finally, a third public hearing and approval at the regular October meeting. As part of the budgeting process, I'm going to look at a moderate rate increase for the water system, which, as you know, is an enterprise fund, beginning in January. Currently, while the water fund is in the black, which we were not before the increase last year, any unexpected repairs will have to come from our general fund because we have almost no reserves in the water fund itself. I'd like us to start building a reserve for those eventualities. Those kind of things aren't ifs, but whens, and we need to be prepared. I'm also planning to have our pay station on the North Shore reprogrammed to include credit card discounts we pay, which average about 3.5% per transaction. We've absorbed these costs, but since we've obtained public acceptance of the pay station, I see no reason to continue doing that. I will analyze this year's budget versus actual and adjust accordingly. I expect increases in our travel budget for WPPA events, but would like to know if there's any particular things you all want to see added or cut. Bias in our 2019 budget. I'm planning on going back to Spokane tomorrow for a one-day session with Chad to straighten out our budget and the other kinks we have. Leanne was going to go but can't now, and she will log on from there, so all of us will be looking at the same information at the same time and getting the setup 100% correct. From there, I can do the budget versus actual adjustments I've been talking about for the past several months, which I'm going to ask Chad to help with and have confidence that our numbers will be correct. Bias is doing a series of webinars for the 2019 budget that began last Thursday, so we'd like to have all this squared away for the rest of them as well. The next webinar is on the 16th. Truck payoff. I've transferred $25,000 from the general fund to the IDD. This repays the loan for buying the truck. At this point, we still have right at $125,000 in our general fund and slightly over $10,000 in the holding account. We also expect to take in additional revenues from launch fees and the gazebo through about the middle of September. Our expenses average about $25,000 a month, so that'll get us through November when we receive another property tax payment, and like last year, still leave us with enough money left over to get us through April of next year when we once again receive property tax revenues. Lobbyist. After meeting with Brianna Murray from Gordon Thomas Honeywell about lobbying services, I negotiated a tentative agreement with them if you all decide to move forward. A copy of it is in your meeting packets. It's basically a 3-year agreement. First year would be $2,000 per month, the second at $2,500, and the final year at $3,000. It's cancelable at any time. I had a real nice conversation with Brianna about that this morning, and what she basically said was, if you're not happy with us or we're not doing the job for you, we'd rather let you cancel the agreement at your preference or whatever, and if there was something else we could do in the future, we'd like to do that to be able to preserve the relationship, which I thought was pretty nice.
That's great.
I thought that was a really good way to do business. The bottom line is that a grant writer working on the Oyster House, depending on who it is and what grants are applied for, could cost us the same amount or more as the lobbyist's annual amount for just one application. I also talked to Kathleen Baranis, and she's sending me a fee schedule for searching for grants, developing funding strategy, and writing grants, but I haven't received it yet. In our conversation, she did mention she's pretty busy working for the tribe, some fire districts, a couple of other ports at 3 cities. We talked about the Oyster House, and she asked me to send her some information we don't yet have relating to specific costs. And to be honest, I'm just not sure how interested she is in doing this, but I'll stay in touch with her. WPPA also recommended 2 people they suggested we talk to. Both are tenants in WPPA's office building. I spoke with both people. One said he wasn't interested in taking on any new clients, but did recommend someone else. The second person, Brian Enslow of Artibus Consulting, said he would send a proposal for me to include in your packet. However, I hadn't received it when I sent your package, which is why I forwarded it to you on Saturday. His specialty is session-only capital budget appropriations, not year-round engagement or grant writing. The third guy, Dave Arbaugh of Arbaugh and Associates, sent me his proposal Sunday night, and I forwarded that to all of you then as well. He's actually from Mason County, lives in Shelton, but he doesn't do grant writing. His proposal did include the services of a contract grant writer at $25 an hour. He also asked for expenses to be reimbursed up to $500 annually, which neither of the other 2 did. If you decide to move forward with the lobbyist, what I will need is approval to sign a contract, no matter who it is with, as the annual amount will exceed my spending authority. There's a resolution on your agenda to cover that. Dock issues. While walking the floating dock with the engineer, I noticed some of the planking and bull rails need replacing. Also, there's no water connection for the fire hose box, no hose in it, nor is it permanently attached to the dock. The bull rails are the most pressing issue, and Don is going to work on that this coming week. The fire hose issue is one we'll resolve as part of the other project, as well as the planks. Several of the planks need to be taken up to run electrical conduit and water lines, so it just makes sense to wait for the plank replacement until the project is underway. There's no point in taking that stuff up twice and doing it. IT issues. We've had an ongoing problem scanning from our copier to our computers. We worked with Charles and Kelly Imaging trying to solve it as late as an hour ago, but it seems to be somewhat intermittent, which makes it hard to track down. It originated with the Windows 10 update, but has continued for a couple of months. We were also forced to purchase a copy of QuickBooks 2018 to be able to access files from 2015 that Dave Myers needed. Kind of felt like we were dealing with ransomware. Taste of Hood Canal, that's coming up this weekend. Unfortunately, I will not be available to work our booth, as we had made plans long before knowing the dates. Neither will Leanne or Don. So we've canceled our booth and have arranged a credit for a booth for next year, unless either or any of you want to work it.
I found out I'm available.
I'm committed.
I'm committed also this weekend.
So
Well,
yeah.
I'm not that available. I don't want to do it all by myself.
It'll only be 11 hours, Judy.
Yeah, I know.
After we
Yeah,
set
and
it
you
up.
could do the Oyster House and the port.
Yeah, I know. You know, if I had a license, I might do that. But
Yeah. All right, vacation schedules. Leanne is planning a vacation from September 13th to 22nd. I still have 5 days of vacation time left. We'll use it later in the year. WPPA meeting schedules. The fall environmental meeting is September 27th and 28th at Skamania Lodge. Small port seminar October 18th and 19th in Leavenworth. And the annual meeting is December 5th through the 7th at the Hyatt Regency in Bellevue. We need to know who's planning on going to what meeting so we can get reservations made. So other than that, all I have is reports for old business.
Okay. So on to old business then.
Okay.
Item A, the marina project.
All
What
right.
have you got?
Marina project. I had forwarded the R.D. Anderson contract to Joe Brogan to review before I sent it to them, and he signed off on it. So I sent it to them, they've signed it, should have a final copy with Joe's signature tomorrow. I met with Denny Klein, the engineer from Art Anderson and Associates that's writing the engineering drawings for this process, and another engineer from their office who he is working with on this. We looked at the physical excuse me. We looked at the physical obstacles and came to some conclusions on exactly how to do this so he can complete the drawings. Also met with Denny, the PUD, and Bill Ray on Friday to figure out exactly what they need to do for permitting and to get some cost estimates on what the PUD needs to do, as well as schedule the work. I have to fill out an application for the PUD, which I will have completed this week. So hopefully the final drawings will be ready within the next 2 weeks and we'll be able to put the electrical and plumbing work out to bid. Permitting is a question that needs some expertise I don't have, so I'd asked Bill Ray to handle that part of it. He's applying for what's called a programmatic permit that will cover all of our facilities for the next 5 years. There's some minimal additional costs for this, but Bill says it'll save us money in the long run. We'll have to do a one-time SEPR report, but it too will cover all our facilities. We do have money allocated in the project for permitting, and this approach may actually cost slightly less than I originally estimated. So in the end, we will save money having Bill do all this. The electrical and plumbing contractors will be pulling the permits for their portion of the job, not us. Included in the funding request was money for a pay station here in Allyn like we have at the North Shore. If there's enough left over, I'd like to allocate that to paying off the lease on the North Shore machine as well. Our grant manager from the Department of Commerce informed me that according to an executive order issued by the governor, we had to send the tribes a letter telling them they have a 30-day window to comment on the project and specify if there are any cultural artifacts at the site. I sent those letters to the Squaxin and Skokomish tribes and received an inquiry from the Squaxins about the amount of trenching needed. I responded to that and have not heard anything else. Today I got an email from our grant manager asking me if I'd heard anything. I told her I dealt with the Squaxins in an email. I forwarded her a copy of the email. I've heard nothing at all from the Skokomish tribe. The 30-day window for responses expires tomorrow. As an aside to this, while I had the attention of someone from the cultural heritage part of the Squaxin tribe, I asked about our totem pole. She told me just go ahead and do whatever we needed to do to fix it and make it safe.
Okay,
So,
good.
as I told her, I said, you know, we've been trying to get somebody to tell us something about this for 2 years.
Yeah.
And she said nobody even knows it's here.
Do you know who that person was by any chance?
I've got her name up.
Okay.
Well, I have her name here somewhere.
All right.
If you want to hold on, I could look real quick.
That's all right. You don't have to.
Just hold on. I'll have it right here. Just 1 second. This is where the Jeopardy music plays. Yep, that wasn't it. You know, actually, I can't find it at the moment. It's
Well,
right.
let's go on to the Sweetwater
Okay.
Park
All right.
one.
Sweetwater Park. Back here. We received the property transfer letter from the North Mason School District. I forwarded it to Joe Brogan to write our response. I wanted to be sure we didn't assume any responsibility for any previous contamination issues. You all approved the draft last month and he sent it to the school district. They have some concerns about it because the Salmon Center was the lead agency for the cleanup, not the school district. They didn't own the property when the cleanup was done, so they understandably don't want the responsibility for any unfound contamination either, which is simply prudent on their part. I told everyone we're committed to the project, and after speaking with both the Salmon Center and the North Mason School District, have come to the conclusion we would not have very much risk at all in taking ownership of the property. Also speaking with Mindy Harlow from Salmon Center, she said if some additional contamination was found, she'd be willing to help us write a grant for any mandated cleanup. With that in mind, I told Joe Brogan to delete that part of the acceptance letter and resend it to the school district so we can begin moving forward. Also told Dana Rosenbach to expect that letter sometime this week. I had also previously forwarded you all a letter from RCO acknowledging the grant from the Salmon Center was working on for Sweetwater Park has been deemed as complete. Mindy Harlow told me the presentation for this is scheduled for August 14th at 10:10 in Olympia, and we're invited if we want to go. I told her I would attend. I don't know if any of you all want to go.
I have a PRTPO meeting that morning.
Okay. And then I have the Oyster House and criminalization of the marina rules.
Okay, let's go to the Oyster House.
Okay. Commissioner Scott, myself, Mike Ross, and the contractor, Walter Galitsky, all met with the planner at the county to figure out the next step forward in obtaining the building permit for the structural work that needs to be done. Overall, it was a pretty positive meeting. We'd had some past issues with that planner and had asked for a different planner. However, while we didn't get one, this time she was much more receptive and cooperative than previously. So all we can surmise is that our request must have made a difference. Commissioner Scott and myself met with Mike Ross and Bill Ray on Friday. Mike has some grave concerns about the structural integrity of the building and how we need to approach the repair work so we can retain all the cultural heritage designations we need for the various funding sources. I proposed getting Judy, myself, Mike, Bill, and Walter, the contractor, together with the state historic funding person and detail to him what our challenges are and explore solutions that will help us keep the historic designation and get us where we want to go with this. Questions have arisen about cantilevering the decking as part of the floor structure and some other major cost issues that need to be resolved before moving forward with funding requests. I've also contacted Nickel Brothers, the firm that moved the building the first time, to get an estimate on the cost of moving it to its final location. I talked to them this afternoon and they're going to send someone out to look at it. We also need costs for removing the launch ramp, driving the pilings, as well as total permitting costs for all those items. And none of that encompasses the cost of the interior and exterior renovation work that needs to be done. One issue concerns who exactly is going to manage this project. If the port does it, all work must be done at prevailing wage. I asked for and got an opinion from the state auditor on this. If the Historical Society manages the project, they can use volunteers, in-kind donations, and the lowest bidder, except on work funded with government money. The problem is the port is eligible for grants the Historical Society isn't, so raising money could be faster and easier. But with the port managing and doing the work will also cost significantly more. At this point, we're working to try to get some solid figures together so we know how much money this project is going to need, assuming prevailing wage rates, so we can begin looking for grants and submit a capital budget request. With all this in mind, we're working on putting together a detailed work plan and gathering cost estimates. I will coordinate all that with Commissioner Scott, the contractor, Bill Ray, and Mike Ross so we can do the capital budget ask. Both Representative Griffey and Senator Sheldon have said they will advocate for this in the capital budget once we have some solid numbers.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Can it be involved in that meeting, since I've been the one doing the numbers all the way along? And they've proven out pretty good, so I think that would be a good place to start.
Yeah, don't forget, we're going to have a meeting tomorrow at 6 o'clock.
Yes.
Mike Ross will be there, and then we can kind of work out some more details in regard to when our meetings are. Also
Yeah.
with,
I'll talk to you later.
okay,
I was just going to say that I know that Ted has not been privy to all of the paperwork that we've been piling you guys with over the years, so I think that I'd like to provide that to you so that you can transfer them. And same thing with Scott. I don't know if Scott's been updated with all the grant stuff.
no, I don't, well, we did a little bit. Okay,
If I could find a time to sit not together, because that would be me, but if I could find just like a half hour, I can go over the stuff and kind of help you understand
Okay.
where the numbers are coming from and what's been done up to date. It all ends up in a grant, 17 pages long, so I'll have to synthesize it for you.
Okay.
When we get those finalized, then Larry can factor in the other.
Great.
thank you, Bonnie.
Okay, and I still got criminalization of arena rules. here.
Sure.
Commissioner Jackson and I have been trying to set up a meeting with the sheriff's office about this for some time now. I did have the opportunity to have a long conversation with Sheriff Salisbury at Allyn Days over this. He said to put our request together in written form and he would review it. Commissioner Jackson and myself plan to get together sometime this month to do just that and then set up the meeting with the sheriff so we can hopefully put this to rest once and for all. And the only other thing I have is Kitsap Ball Ports Association. Last meeting was July 30th. Presentation from Visit Kitsap, the tourism agency for the county, and it was about the water trails. She passed out maps and noted that Allyn and Hood Canal are included on the map and gave recognition to the port for making sure that they were. One interesting item of note, several of those ports have had to deal with derelict vessel situations. Port of Manchester came up with a unique idea they said has worked well for them. Instead of auctioning off the vessels after taking possession of them, they've successfully put them for sale up on Craigslist. Might be worth taking a look at the next time we have to deal with that.
Yeah,
So that's my report.
great. Okay,
Excuse me.
let's go to new business items, which is the lobbyist contract proposals. Has everybody had a chance in looking at them?
I got through them, and my only thought is it's so much money. And what I remember about her proposal was that she was only familiar with one of our projects, which was the sports complex, and they don't work for port, or they don't currently work for a port district. And I don't
None of them do.
Yeah.
Except the one guy had done one thing for Walla Walla.
I honestly would not feel comfortable approving it at this point because of the cost and not knowing where that money's coming from.
Okay.
How about you, Ted?
Well, working on a lot of grants, I understand the importance of having a grant writer, especially for $2,000 a month, in which you can eventually get out of them, the big picture. Out of all the proposals, I like the Gordon Honeywell proposal the best. I think I agree with Commissioner Cooper is that if we know what grants we want to go out for and how much money we're looking for a grant, hiring these people would be beneficial, especially if they're lobbying down in Olympia. When we have a Oyster House we're trying to get through, it's going to take more than the senator and representative to get that money in the budget. So I don't have a problem with it. I just like to know exactly what grants we're looking for, how much money, and then if we could utilize their service, I would go with the Honeywell proposal.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I'm looking at a grant for $45,000, and I've been out. One company said, we'll get you the grant for $4,000. And that's money well ahead compared to my time to write the grant and not knowing. So I think it's important to have an advocate on your side. It is a lot of money. And I'd just like to see, okay, these are the goals we want. This is what the people are going to provide for us, and let's go for it. So.
Yeah, this is the same conversation I had with the Port Orchard City Council when we hired Gordon Thomas Honeywell. It's $25,000 a year for the first year. They got a $700,000 out of the capital budget for the DeKalb Street Pier project. The second year was $25,000, and they got us $400,000 to finish that project. Plus, they got money for other things. I thought that was a pretty good ROI myself. But
I agree.
and they're willing to cancel the contract at any time.
But it looks like we're gonna hire them in September, so what would they be working on in September? We don't have a shovel-ready project.
Well, I'd have them looking for money. You know, what grants are available for the Oyster House, because, you know, I've kind of kept the Oyster House at an arm's length since I've been here, but now that I'm having to be part of it, it's a money pit. I mean, we're gonna need a lot of money. I just kind of rough estimate $500,000.
Yeah, somebody at our last meeting said 800. Yeah.
Well, So what I would do is, I think a decision needs to be made. Are we gonna do this project, or is the Historical Society gonna do it, or what? If we're gonna do it, I think we'd be foolish not to be going after every nickel that there was. And I think these guys are better positioned to look for it than we are.
Oh, I agree. Is this something we could maybe get together and discuss specifically what projects we're gonna ask them to work on, how much we think they need to be looking for?
Yeah, we could do that.
Have a workshop or a,
We can do that.
because I don't feel as if I have enough information to make a good decision tonight.
Okay.
So with that being said, I would probably reject it tonight.
Okay. Well,
How about
whatever you
Ted?
guys think.
I agree, I don't wanna, it's a lot of money, but, a little bit more information and, on our part, gathering our own information, and then come up with a discussion. I don't think it's a bad idea. No matter what it costs to get the Oyster House done, I know people in this community would be so excited to see it in the water.
Yeah.
So, and if whatever lifting we have to do, whatever we have to come up front, I know that'd be a huge boon for the citizens of Allyn. So, yeah, why don't we postpone it till the next meeting
Yeah.
and do our research and just put it as a discussion topic and finalize it. I don't want to drag these people out because I'm sure they're getting clients,
They are.
and it'd be nice to be on their front burner and say, hey, let's prove that we want their business for the next couple of years. And
Well, maybe what I should do is go back to, do y'all agree that if we're gonna hire somebody, that's who it should be?
Well, I would, I think. just
Because I
of
can
the
go
past.
back to them and say, here's what we wanna do. Give us a list of what money there is that you would go after and how much and, you know, that sort of thing, and have them come back and do a presentation.
And just so the people know too, we've looked at their proposals and some of them have not had any experience at what we need.
Yeah.
And Gordon Thomas.
Gordon Thomas Honeywell.
Yeah, have probably the most experience at it, even though they haven't always worked for ports. One thing I would lean towards them, and here's my opinion about it, is that, and for the Oyster House, it will take a lot more money just because of the condition of it. But with Mike Ross doing the plans, we have to get more information first before we can go get those grants for the capital grants anyway and all that. So I'm comfortable with waiting because we do need the schematics, the plans drawn, and get everybody gathered together a little better.
Well, we also need to be looking at money for Sweetwater Park. Although
Yeah.
the Salmon Center said that's why they wanted to partner with us, because we have access to money they wouldn't. So, you know, that's in the mix. And then, you know, what I'd like to do, if it was possible, is find some land for the sports park. That's been the biggest issue at this point. And, you know, I had asked David Overton how much to sell his 20 acres, and he never would give me a number, and said, I think you ought to wait until after the Belfair Bypass or Freight Mobility Corridor or whatever it's called today.
And he likes shovel-ready projects.
Well, it wasn't that. I think he's looking for his land to be worth more. So, and then he didn't really want to sell it until then. But I could be wrong about that, but that's kind of what I got out of the conversation we had and the email that he sent me. So,
Okay. So we'll move on then, we'll table
Okay.
that, but at least let them know that they would
Okay.
probably be a
Okay.
good choice for us.
all right.
And talking about next meeting and having a decision then, I won't be here at the next meeting because we moved it to the day after Labor
Oh,
Day.
yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
So I can make any meeting, any workshop meeting, I think, before Labor Day I'll be able to make, but
Okay.
Well, then do you want to table resolution 395 as well?
Yes. We can go ahead and do that.
Okay,
We
that's up
can-
to you.
Yeah, we can do that. Let me find that one. We lot of documents to go through. Kind of hard to find it because they're all by date, so we can't really find it quickly and easily.
That's about in the middle of the pack there.
Nope.
There's a copy over there.
Oh,
Yeah, there's a
here we
written
go.
copy right here.
Found it. Great.
What's its name?
It is resolution number 395. Somebody like to read it? Okay. There you go.
Right. Port of Allyn, Washington, resolution number 395. Be it resolved by the Commissioners of the Port of Allyn as follows. Whereas the Board of Commissioners of the Port of Allyn has met and considered the possibility of hiring a lobbying firm to further the port's interests. Is that supposed to be firm?
It is a firm, it says on mine.
Okay, it says firm.
Oh, so we need to fix that.
Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners, after duly considering all relevant evidence and testimony present, hereby agrees to hire a lobbying firm to further the port's interests while the amount of the agreement to secure such services exceeds the Executive Director's spending authority as designated to him on June 10, 2016. The Commissioners hereby delegate a one-time authority to sign a contract for the port to secure lobbying services to the Executive Director. Whereas the Port of Commissioners, Port of Allyn hereby authorizes the Port's Executive Director to sign a contract with the lobbying firm by the Commissioners not to exceed total cost of $90,000 payable in monthly installments over a 3-year period. Adopted by the Board of Commissioners of the Port of Allyn at the regular public meeting thereof held the 6th day of August 2018 and duly authorized in open session by the signatures of the Commissioners voting in favor thereof, the seal of the Commission.
Okay,
I would like to have our workshop before we agree to hire a firm. I
okay,
don't think we've agreed to hire a firm, so therefore having a resolution agreeing to it,
okay, so we'll table that,
thank you.
okay? Okay, well, that's tabled. Next on the item is Ken Van Busker's request of materials to be entered into the official record. Do you have anything that you want to comment on, Ken?
Sure. Hi, Ken Van Busker, Davis Farm Road in Belfair. I was one of the people that Mr. Capola talked to about the gravel operation that was proposed. And I couldn't attend your meeting on July 2nd, but I did watch the video and I looked at your minutes this evening of that meeting. And I was able to obtain, and I don't know if you folks got it, but I sent this email to you and asked that these comments be official comments from the public agencies that responded to that.
We did get those.
Okay, and I just wanted to make sure that you knew of them. There was also an additional 240 public comments, and I would suggest that you folks get a copy of those from Michael McSims with Mason County, their public records. Quite a few of them refer to the proximity to the Port of Allyn. And actually the Department of Health, Washington State Department of Health commented on the proximity to water wells, and I know that was one of the issues that you folks talked about. And I just think there's a potential for this project to resurface, and like I said in my email, I was disappointed that the port didn't take an official position on it, because I think you should have, given the proximity of our port facilities next to that proposal. So just was hoping that you'd enter or get a copy of those comments and look at them. If it comes to light again, that you make an appropriate response.
Thank you, Ken. We did get the documents and.
Did we get all 240, all public comment? Can we get that?
No, yeah, we did not get those in there.
I could get those,
Yeah,
I
could we
just sent you what Ken sent
I
me.
just sent the ones that were from public
Right.
agencies. There's 13 PDFs that.
Yeah, maybe we could put it all, zip it into a package, and like he said, if it comes up again, we could
Thank you.
have a little more informed.
You know, interesting, I have never heard of Hood Canal Environmental Council. Is that pretty new?
No, it's been around for
No?
30 years.
Oh, well, shows how much I know.
But
They're
there
in
is
CBAC.
one interesting note that I should mention, if I can. There was a public comment from a lady that was concerned that the gravel pit was going into Allyn, in the vicinity of the Allyn community. And I didn't make a copy of it, but that's how marketing of the port is very important, because a lot of people don't understand that the Allyn's port facilities are
Everywhere, yeah, northeast corner of
That was the
Mason
only
County.
comment that alluded to it being in Allyn proper, so just thought I'd pass that on.
Well, as you know, Grump Ventures did rescind their request. You know that they did.
Well, I do, and there was a lot more to it than,
Right. But they did anyway, so.
yes.
Okay,
It will resurface.
thank you, Ken.
Yeah.
Okay, the next item would be a discussion of the budget process.
Yes, I've outlined the timeline and I'd like to know what you all would like to see in next year's budget or not see.
And when is our next budget meeting?
At the September meeting.
Okay, so that's when it's gonna start then?
That's when it's gonna start.
Okay,
I've got to write it between now and then.
I guess the big thing for me would be if we're going to be paying $25,000 a year for a lobbyist, or potentially where that's coming from and how it fits in there. And
Okay,
do you guys wanna do any work session this month?
we could if you want.
For me, it would have to be after the weekend of the 19th.
Yeah,
that'd be good for me too.
okay.
Yeah,
Well,
we-
and plus, we're gonna try to meet Oyster House related. I mean, we need to talk about budget, but also that would also relate to some of the Oyster House stuff. And we're gonna try to meet with Bill Ray, right? And Nicholas Van,
Right.
Mike Ross. So we'll keep everybody posted on that too. Okay,
Just another thing is if there's any big ticket items, like we bought the truck last year, the truck wasn't in the budget, but we found the money. So if there's any big ticket items, capital facilities.
I can't think of anything really that, because all our facilities are in pretty good
Yeah.
shape. So I don't foresee any real big expenses unless something happens with the water system.
Yeah.
But it's new enough that I don't see, us having a big main infrastructure problem there. So the truck was unexpected, but, we've managed to take in enough money in new revenue that we didn't have 2 years ago, as well as cut expenses to where we were able to pay for it. Like I said in my report, right now, according to the treasurer's report we got last week, we have about $125,000 in the bank and about $10,000 in the holding account. And, come November, we get property tax payments again. So last year we carried over almost $100,000. I expect us to be kind of in that same situation this year. Maybe not quite as much because we did buy the truck and do
Right.
some other things. But we should still have a pretty healthy carryover.
We have regular expenses that might be in our budget as maintenance, or say we do the parking lot once a year, or we cut trees down, or
Yeah,
are
we-
those things that we can identify?
You know, we shouldn't
First
have
off.
to spend the money on the parking lots that we spent this year,
Mhm.
because the whole idea with the gravel that we bought was it was much better quality gravel than we've been using, and, you know, we regraded everything, filled in the potholes, and so.
We talked about pulling stumps, and that would be additional to,
Yeah, well, you also didn't really want to mess with that, so.
or pushing dirt around to make additional parking on the North Shore.
Well, that might be a project to look at. One thing I was thinking about doing was getting it surveyed so we know exactly where the property lines are. But it's as wide as the piece on the waterfront side, so we've got the room
Yeah,
to,
there's probably 10 feet there.
yeah. We have the room to make a parking lot for trailers there. Big question's gonna be, what do we do with the dirt?
Yeah.
You know, if we excavate it out of there, we could take it down to the dock and bury those stumps that we, you know, where we cut down the danger trees maybe. That might be something to do with some of it. But, you know, I don't know that we have any use for any of it here, so.
Yeah.
But I think what we need to do is find out where the property lines are first. And I expect that's probably about a $5,000 project.
Yeah.
Based on what it cost us to find the property line for the fence over here.
You mean in totality, or just
Yeah.
to do that one thing?
Just that one thing, yeah.
You don't happen to know, Dal, you don't happen to know where the property lines are in at the North Shore launch ramp on the other side of the road? Nope.
No, I
Okay.
couldn't.
Okay,
I know, I don't know if Scott still has a fence there or not, but that was the property line on the lower side.
I actually
Yeah.
think there is a remnant of a fence up there. It's kind of
Yes,
high
yeah.
up, yeah.
You just projected across the highway into the gravel pit area.
yeah. Okay. And we already discussed about the Taste of Hood Canal booth. So, we're on to public comment. Hi. Richard. Oh, raised his hand, go ahead.
You know, I've come to quite a few meetings over the last few years. And it may be believed that I came just because Bonnie was the executive director and so forth. But I will tell you that my interest in the port of Allyn goes back much further than that. My mother worked in that oyster house for many years. And my brother picked up oysters so she could open them for many years. So I actually have a personal interest in that project. And you may hear more from me about it because of that, okay? In my life, I've never made a point of letting anybody drum my actions. But I also made sure that I tried not to interfere in Bonnie's business, okay? So I did want to tell you that because, you know, it's easy for people to think that the decisions about the Sergeant Oyster House just came up for the last couple of years. And actually, there's a lifetime of history for me in the Oyster House. I didn't actually ever work there. My brother did, as I mentioned. But I did a lot of swimming down there because when the tide came in, it was great over the tide flats. And so, and I used to visit my mother when she worked down there a lot too. So, as I make contributions, just because I do have an interest, okay? I think it's worth saying, in Bonnie's behalf, she's missed a few meetings. After I had a stroke, we decided it was time to get out of town for a while, so we did. Unfortunately, a year and a half ago, I also had a attack of arteritis. It's an infection of a nerve system. In my case, it hit my right eye. And but I think we're both, you know, ready to get back in the saddle.
Great.
Okay.
See ya.
Thanks.
Thanks, Richard.
Thank you, Richard. Appreciate you.
Okay, well, that was unexpected. I will take just a second. though.
Yes, please, Bonnie.
I'm still wobbling, but I'm getting better.
Yeah, it's getting great.
Yeah. You didn't mention the surgeries you just had. Yeah, I appreciate that. I've missed some meetings, especially lately with double surgeries, but things have kept going.
Yeah.
Things have kept going. And I think that it would be really good if I'd have the chance to, you've been in on everything. You have not, you came in cold and I really apologize for never getting to you. Scott, I apologize to you from 2 or 3 years ago. But it's very clear that there's a lot of information that is not, there's this much, and when Judy can pass it on, there's just no way you can pass on the full thing. In fact, when I do it in meetings and reports, even there I can't show you the full thing. But I'd like to sit down with both of you as soon as you can to help you in your decision-making process, because there are a lot of things that you need to know and to see where we actually are with it. It has gone really, really well. We had numbers from the beginning that said $1 million down to whatever, and we've done really, really well in getting volunteer stuff, and I've put together the budget for the last grant that is pending still. It's $160,000 for one of the capital grants. From there, you're going to have to pull out the money if, when the port's going to go for the legislative package. But in the information that Larry sent me, up to 50% of it, the port could put up to 50% without having to go to pay prevailing wage. And I'm frankly going to talk to Nickel Brothers and see if they won't donate it to the North Bay Historic Society, the moving of it.
Be great.
They won't do that for the port because it's a government entity. But I don't think it's impossible to think that they might give us a really good deal. They talked that way in the very beginning before they knew it was the port going to pay for it. But if, there's people that have donated at least that much value. So those are the types of things that I'm still working on. So I hope you'll hang in there with us and let me give you the information you need, and we can pick up the pieces and figure out where we need to go from here. Just one comment about the lobbyist versus the grant writer. Generally, grant writers charge an amount to put something together by the hour. And then their major part comes from taking a percentage of the grant. And that's really a good way to do it, because if you get 100,000, they're going to get 10,000 of it or something. But that's the only big difference I see in lobbyist versus grant person. Because I'm not so sure, I'm not sure how the lobbyist thing works with the grants, but I know most of the grants, like the one I'm going for, we have to donate the administration of it. We can't charge anything for the administration or the grant writing or anything like that. So it's just a matter of which ones you're going to go for and if it makes it worth it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Thank you, Bonnie.
answer any questions you have, but I'd rather sit down one-on-one and go through it. It's a pile of material. So I'd really like to pass it on to both of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your work, Bonnie. Tell you, having you missed those few meetings, it's been sorely missed.
I don't have to wear my brace anymore.
That's great.
As of next week.
Thank you. Okay, Jeff.
Jeff Carey. Two things here. One is I keep harping on the tip cap. I'll keep doing
Yes,
that
please
because
do.
they're looking at finalizing a list for both the 1-year and the 6-year plans for the county. And in this area, at least in the Port District, there's 5 larger, when I say larger projects. Smaller ones are like culverts and things like that. I'm not listing those, but small fish blockage ones, not big ones, but ones that they have repairs to do in culverts. But larger ones is obviously they're starting to put funds, I think, for 2019 together for starting, maybe it's 2020, to start facilitating the state with the Belfair bypass. And so that's that section dealing with connection, what the connection points would be or won't be with respect to Belfair. So the county's moving in that direction to put money towards that, because it'll be a portion the county's responsible for. It won't be the state. The other is local, what I call local circulation access. There's nothing firm in it. It's mainly from the SCJ review of Belfair, but somewhere in there, the county's set some money aside for new roads in UGAs, but it's, in my mind, ambiguous. I mean, it's there in the budget, but it's not tied to any particular project. They call it new roads. But in Belfair, there'll be something that has to be looked at for circulation out longer term. Likewise with Allyn, you had SCJ do their review, and in that one there is the right-of-ways of Wheelwright, Masterson, and Wade Street, about 4,500 to 5,000 feet of right-of-ways that have to be looked at, need to be looked at. They should have been looked at 130 years ago, but that need to be addressed. And the county has, it looks like to me, it's in rough form right now, is targeted about $400,000 over the next 2 years, and then looking at acquiring the right-of-ways. Whether that happens, I've seen this before. We've gone through this many times, but at least it's getting up front. It's getting closer to real, and it's something that's got to be addressed. Also, another one is the Trails Road repair, the slide area. They're spending a fair amount of money, but it's a bigger money pit than the one you have here, because that road just keeps moving, and there's not a lot they can do. They just have to work with it. And along that line, the county's had SCJ work up a study, and the TIPCAP committee has not seen it yet, and I don't know that it's public yet, but that's to look at access points for Razor Road to access, and the vicinity is Highway 3, 106 in that corridor. Don't know, there's a lot of factors that go into it, but those are the 5 projects anyway that are have an effect up here. And again, if there's things on the transportation side that the port's seeing that needs to come up, TIPCAP wants to hear about it, and our contact at least still is Loretta Swanson, so just forward it on to her, and I'll make sure next meeting's the 15th of August, make sure that they at least are shooting up at least draft copies of what TIPCAP's looking at, especially up in this, the north end. I don't think there's anything else with TIPCAP. One last thing, I noticed on the minutes, there's a phrase where it says Department of Natural Resources. I think that was to be Department of Community Development, because that was in context with the review of your,
Oh, yeah.
The
That you
water
were
system
talking
plan.
about,
Yeah,
yeah. Okay.
So if I said that I was wrong. But
So we need to correct that then? I mean,
Yeah.
we approved it, we could go
Oh
back
yeah, I mean
and
it's
correct
yeah,
it.
you guys.
Amendment, yeah.
I didn't see it before, and I just figured I'll bring it up and you can address it,
Pull that out.
bring it in.
Okay. Well, thanks for bringing that up.
And again, appreciate the video. I keep stating that, but it's just so much handier.
It is a lot. It is-
Well, I mean, even if you go to a meeting, if you forget something, you can go back. I mean, I kind of roughly know that, it's a half hour, hour into it, and, skip right to that point, and it's better than taking notes. So,
It has been helpful, and
so
thank you, Jeff.
appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
So if we have comment, to contact Loretta about TIPCAP?
Yes.
Okay.
Jeff, I'm sorry, have they finalized or even come close to anything up here on the north end about improvements? And I know Razor Road and Trails End, ever since I've been here,
Yeah.
no problem. But I'll tell you, the one place that really concerns me is, I know it's state, but in front of the school, the high school. That intersection is getting worse and worse by the year. Both 302 and right in front of the school.
We still would want it. When we had our not open house forum in Belfair here back, I think in March, late March, early April, there was a lot of comments about, we're taking public comment to projects in the north end, and I'll say more than half of them were state related. But it isn't focusing on county roads and county right-of-ways and county assets. That doesn't mean if there's something that ties to it, interfaces with it, like it's kind of a state highway that ties into the county road, that it doesn't, it can come up. I mean, there's ways, because the county's involved with things like the, the issue down in Taylortown. There's a lot of it's state, but a fair amount of it's also county, to have better access, they're safer access on and off that interface. So don't ask me what they're doing because they've changed it now for another time, but I mean, to give you an example, that's one that's, a state intersection of sorts, on-ramp, off, and on-ramps, or not ramps, but, on and off, and then there's a county portion, and that's come before us. And there are parts to the project that we would comment and give recommendations or, push. I mean, for example, different subject, but like the Trails End, the county was putting that off, and TIPCAT asked to move it right forward and, move it harder and faster because we got the problem with Trails End Road, and we've talked about for dozens of years about some other access, and it really kind of hit the head this last year when one of the parties owns 80 acres in there. There's complications with it, but at least in letter form, was willing to donate access, a right of way. It's not clear exactly where, but within that 80 acres, but donate right of way that would help facilitate that project. There's complications in the county taking donations that way, but anyway, I'm saying there's inertia to try to solve that problem, and TIPCAP is trying to be on the forefront of that, to help. Not that the county public works doesn't see the projects, it's just taking the public side, and we had like three different kind of forums, public forums, for each district, and we're trying to do that each year, so hopefully we'll get them.
Thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? Del? No? Okay, I have one thing. North Mason Community Voice is going to be meeting the last Monday of this month, and Dana Rosenbach will be our speaker from the North Mason School District. So please attend. Anything else for the good of the order?
The North Mason Bulldogs Booster Golf Tournament is coming up August 26th.
Okay.
I have a couple applications if you don't mind posting them down.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Okay, move to adjourn?
So moved.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, folks.